This is Doug, and welcome to the Practicing Accountant podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today, we get to talk about one of my favorite topics, beer. Well, we don't just talk about beer, we talk about a few other menu items, but our conversation today is around cross-selling, where it's been, where it is, and where it's going, and how it might impact your firm and your practice. We hope you enjoy this episode. So when I started in public, I had been to obviously grew up in Colorado for the most part and some time in Kansas. I'd been to Missouri, I'd been to Arkansas, but I hadn't been, you know, too many other places. I've been to Mexico for family vacations, but I hadn't really explored much of the States. So when I got into public accounting at Arthur Andersen, it was kind of a jolt because, they're sending me to all kinds of places that I had never been. And one of those places was New York. And I was, of course, blown away by the city and the size of it and the complexity of it. And I'd never been in a place like that before. So it was overwhelming. But I was with a guy that had been to New York before, and he kind of knew the ways, where to go and what to see. And he took me to a place called McSorley's Old Ale House. You ever heard of that?
No, I don't know
So,
anything about New York, quite
no, you
frankly.
haven't been?
Never. Nope.
Yeah. It's overwhelming is the best as I can describe it.
That's why I haven't been. I don't think I really
Yeah,
want to.
there's so many, just ways to get around and little nuances to streets and subways and parts of town and parts of the city that have different names. It's just overwhelming and
hmm
coming from a small place. But anyway, he took me to McSorley's Old Ale House, and it's this small Irish bar. And beforehand, he told me, he said, "Don't expect much," and but I'm going to take you there because everyone, if you go to New York, you got to go to this bar. It's like one of the oldest bars in New York is why it's one of the reasons why it's so popular. And I mean, everything's original. It's really fancy. A lot of dark black woods. But the cool thing about, or I thought was cool, when you get the menu, they did have some food, basic stuff, burger, hot dog, chicken. And when it came to their drinks, this was a bar, mind you, they had two choices: either get light or dark. That's it. That's all you get to choose from. And so when they come over and ask you what you want to drink, I'm sure they had some. Actually, I've got the menu pulled up here. They have Diet Coke, Coke, seltzer, ginger ale. But when it comes to alcohol at this quote unquote bar, you've got two choices: light or dark. And I remember this was in my 20s, so I don't remember it that clearly. But I'm pretty sure I had one of each, and tried to give it a shot. But it was just a really cool experience because I loved that they owned what they were and they offered what they wanted to offer, and that was it. They didn't have a full bar in back stocked with martinis and all kinds of different various alcohols that sit up on a shelf all year long and maybe get
Right.
poured once or twice. They didn't have like that whiskey that was so expensive no one ever ordered it unless it was a charge account or you're celebrating something. They didn't have 15 different flavors of whatever. It was just light or dark beer.
And they were probably great.
Oh yeah, they were very tasty.
Yeah.
As far like I said, I'm a little vague on most of it, but even just having the clarity to say this is what we are,
Yeah.
and this is what we serve. And if someone came in and asked for a whiskey Coke, they'd say, I can give you the Coke, but not the whiskey.
Right.
Um, so I think about that, and I think about that in analogy to public accounting, and I think we're in the middle of a pendulum. I think that it used to be, public accounting was just audit and tax, right? And that was what you did, and there weren't a lot of flavors. It was light and dark beer. It was audit and tax work, and that's what was offered. And then right around the 90s, the early 2000s, we got into all this advisory work, right?
hmm
All this consulting, and we would do strategic planning and M&A and due diligence and tax planning and special tax consulting projects, and accounting was branching out into. And if I think about it as a menu, it was like Cheesecake Factory. You ever been there?
They have everything.
Right. They've got a menu that's like an inch
Yeah.
thick, and like
It's
you could spend
obnoxious.
Right. You can spend an hour looking through the menu of all the things they offer.
Yeah.
And, if you visit the website of an accounting firm around that time, even today still, you go to the services button, right? And it's like
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what don't we do? Right. What don't we offer? Yes, we do, tacos, and we do burgers, and we do pizza, and we do, Cajun food. Like, it was just, they offered everything. And then Enron showed up, and, firms kind of got in trouble as to how they were charging their clients, which put the brakes on some things and really just caused them to kind of shift everything over into its own, vertical of advisory, and, keep the consultants away from the auditors and the tax guys.
Right.
In some cases, they broke up the firm, like Arthur Andersen and Andersen Consulting. They got into some tiffs on who made the most money, and ultimately split. So anyway, we went that way for a while. We tightened it up a little bit, but we still had all of these advisory services. Well, I think now I'm feeling, there's a bit of a shift back, like the pendulum's kind of coming back a little bit. And instead of trying to be everything to everyone or everything to all of our clients, like really getting focused on what is it we are best at, and also provides our opportunities to cross-sell our clients, but also at the same time, not being an expert at everything.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the shift show up in, you and I have talked about kind of that community firm, that co-firm where, one firm will leverage another firm for services they don't provide, maybe do some, revenue sharing as they pass work amongst themselves. But at the end of the day, the firm itself offers, light or dark, and it might be tax prep and maybe some tax consulting, or it might be, a niche. We only do, manufacturing companies. It might be we only do advisory. We're only doing virtual CFOing, and the bookkeeping goes somewhere else. I'm not trying to be your bookkeeper and your payroll and your tax preparer and your CFO and your project guy and your M&A guy and your margin analysis guy.
You can't be good at all of those things. There's no way. And it's funny you bring this up, because I was looking through notes like 30 minutes ago, and I came across something I wrote down that if the butter's too thin, the toast tastes like shit. So it's right. You just can't be good at all those things. If you're a CPA, you think you can do everything,
right?
Like tax and audit work and whatever. But that's always something I push back on at my previous firm, was taking on everything just because we're an accounting firm. We can't do it all.
That's the people pleaser, right? The client asks for something, we should be able to please them and say, yes, we can do that, even though we've never done that report before. We don't even know what AOP stands for, or whatever the case might be. But the people pleaser causes us to have a menu that's full of things beyond just light and dark ale. But I'm feeling that swing back, where I think firms have diluted their services so much because, to your point, the butter is too thin. And clients, the only reason why they want a full service or an all service CPA is out of convenience and ease, right? I only have to talk to one guy or gal. I don't have to, have all these numbers and all these contacts and all this communication. And I get that. I do. But at the end of the day, you've got folks that are putting themselves out there to be something that they're not qualified to be. Mm-hmm. And namely, the virtual CFO has become something of a cliche at this point. Like, who isn't a CFO at this point?
Yeah.
Everyone is dabbling and they're having a meeting a month, and they're preparing some financial reports that they sit down and go through them, and they call that CFOing. Meanwhile, there's CFOs that are, putting together these debt packages and capital raises, and they're being strategic, they're being forward thinking, they're modeling, they're planning for the future. They've earned that credential as CFO. And I feel like, there's folks that are dabbing their toes into things that they really just shouldn't.
We had a referral relationship with a quote unquote virtual CFO, and we have a bookkeeping firm, and they weren't doing anything. They were literally just printing reports out of QBO and sending those to them and calling that CFO work.
Yeah. Right.
It's not.
No, and clients, because they don't know better, or they're small enough, that they'll maybe appreciate that because it's more than what they were doing before. But is it really truly providing value? Like, is it really something you can bill, $10 thousands and thousands of dollars for and only put a couple of hours into. Like, I feel there's a pendulum swinging back on this, and it hasn't quite hit yet. So maybe I'm being a little bit predictive here, but I feel like there's going to be a point in time in which, folks are realizing that I'm not getting the value for the money I'm paying. But back to the, where I'm really trying to go here is cross-selling is a good thing. When you have a client and they're paying you for something, it's great to be able to say, oh, and by the way, we have this other thing that we offer that we like to give. But I think that should be a little bit more intentional than just, we have everything and welcome to the Cheesecake Factory, and, start flipping the pages and picking out the things you want to order.
Yep.
I think it should be a light or dark. It should be, we do this and we should do this. And I'm not putting a number on it. I'm not saying you shouldn't offer more than 4 services or anything like that. But they should be things that are very valuable, that your clients would be interested in paying for, that allow them to do better in their business. And it's something that you either enjoy doing or do very well, hopefully enjoy too, that really boosts you in how your clients perceive your services with some integrity. Right? We don't do some things because we don't do some things. Mm-hmm. So that pendulum I'm feeling is kind of been all over the place, but because I'm seeing this, and this is a lot to do with CAS, in some light that would be client accounting services, and some would be client advisory service, depending on who you talk to. But I think this big push for CAS is really behind this, of being a full service firm that does everything. And I think that's actually going to be something that's going to cause some problems in this industry down the road, because we're going to be putting our names on things that we shouldn't. We're going to be giving advice that we're not qualified to give. We're going to be, putting a signature or putting a client into a position that we're not qualified to put them into.
Right.
So, I've had the discussion, three times this week with 3 separate individuals in public in various sized firms, and all of them have the exact same story. I'm supposed to cross-sell a lot more. That's if there's a theme in the industry right now that I'm hearing from my clients, is I need to cross-sell more. I'm being told I need to cross-sell more, is maybe a better version of it. But so much effort is being put into building this advisory, this thing that maybe they have the qualifications to do or not. And it feels like everyone's chasing the dollar. It feels like everyone's being greedy. How can I charge my clients more? And I get that. There's definitely some good science to that. But let's just be real about, what it is we're offering. Are we McSorley's, or are we a Cheesecake Factory? And if we're one or the other, just be damn good at whatever's on the menu.
Yep. I think I've always thought that the advisory thing is way over pushed. Mm-hmm. There are certain people, certain firms that have the ability and the knowledge to do that work. But you and I know that accounting firms owners are often the worst business owners. And I don't know that they should be doing much advisory other than maybe tax planning or, maybe some CFO work. But I'm not sold on the advisory thing for everybody. I think you just get really good at what you want, what you're probably already really good at, and right. continue to push that.
Well, I appreciate going to like a Dick's Sporting Goods where, they've got a little bit of everything that would fit my sporting goods needs. So that feels good. But, if I'm really a hockey player, or if I'm, really that baseball player, I'm going to go to those pro shops that have got, the real depth of expertise. I'm going to be talking to someone at that store who really knows the products and has actually used the products and is really a player in that field. I can use examples for, grocery stores. If I want to get really good Asian ingredients, I can go to Safeway and do pretty good. I'm not going to get a lot of questions answered, or I can go to the Asian market and get a fresher product with better expertise. It's just, we're just kind of diluting some of the services by now everyone being everything. And I think the opportunity is not to just stick with light, and not necessarily just to stick with light and dark, but just just bundling a group of services that the firm has the expertise, can charge a good rate for, and provides good value for the clients, but isn't trying to oversell the cross sell, and coming up with services that just they're putting themselves at risk of doing.
Yeah. I might push back on that a little bit. I think before you even decide to cross sell, I think you should go harder into the one thing that you're really good at with that niche. And that's where that pricing power comes from. If you, and maybe there's two different stories here, cross selling with maybe one other service versus being a full service type of company. And I guess that's a business model question. Do you want to be that full service, offer everything, the Cheesecake Factory type model, or do you want to be the whatever bar you're talking about in New York? I think Sorley's, Mixed Sorley's. I think there's a place for both, but I like the idea of less clients and more money, and that lands on the side of less services in my mind.
Well, there's a number of ways to look at. I mean, the same thing that we talked about in services is we can talk the same about industries, right? You know, the firms that serve everyone, which again, we're not saying that's a bad thing, but you know, can you really create that pricing power when you are everything to everyone?
Right.
And you know, I'm going to pay more at the specialty hockey store than I am at Dick's Sporting Goods, most likely. Yeah. And I'm okay with that because of the expertise that I'm getting. It's like remember the running shoe companies that used to pop up, like Boulder Running Company or whatever? Like, you know, you'd walk in, they'd like size your foot, they'd get you on the treadmill. You know, they'd have like 3 or 4 shoes that the computer said that you should be wearing. And, you know, you would pay a premium to get that kind of a service and that kind of expertise. And I think that's something that the firms are starting to kind of gravitate away from. Instead of being that place where you can come and really feel held by the experts, you're being held by someone who does everything for everyone and loses that pricing power because they are seen as everything to everyone. So I take your challenge and I agree with it for sure. So I think one of the ways I look at this too is, you know, I look at my niche, I look at my ideal client, and I ask myself, what is it they want? You know, what is most important to them? And consider, you know, what are those things that I could provide, or that I want to provide, that I have the expertise to provide, or can develop the expertise to provide, and what don't I want to do? You know, a lot of folks, I'm seeing this a lot, and I bet you're benefiting from it. You know, a lot of accountants are starting to gravitate away from the bookkeeping. Mm-hmm. You know, they're taking the bookkeeping and they're placing it in someone else's hands. Now that might be like your hands. It might be offshore's hands. It might be, you know, in the future, AI's hands that, you know, is going to pick up on some of the bookkeeping. And then what's left is this client advisory. And, you know, another way to look at this is some of the things that are currently light or dark ale may no longer be served.
Yeah.
You know, because they're just no longer the things that serve the business and the clients. So, you know, my ramble today here is just around, you know, I love this bar. I love the simplicity of it. I love the expertise in which they bring to their craft. You know, I do appreciate a Cheesecake Factory from time to time, but I also know I'm not going to get the best burger there or the best lasagna there or the best fried chicken there or whatever it is that they're serving, you know, all over the board. I'm just not going to get the best stuff. And I think the opportunity here is just to kind of play a game of understanding that, you know, we can be everything, but we do lose some of that pricing power. You can still cross sell, but find those things that you're good at or very interested in, or your clients are very interested in, and provide a package that feels more like you're trying to really hit that target of serving that client rather than anything and everything they could ever want from you.
Yeah, I think that cross sell should be tangential to what you're already doing and good at, and not something out of left field that, you know, if you are doing tax, maybe jump into tax planning, but if you're doing tax, maybe don't jump into audit or you know, something else. But
which is a big jump. So that's my spiel today. And again, not saying that a firm shouldn't have multiple services to provide, but I'm just noticing trends of everyone trying to be everything right now. And there's some opportunity there for sure. But just be mindful as to the pricing power that comes with being seen as an expert in an area, so that you can work less and still deliver for your clients.
Yep. Awesome, dude.
That's it. That's all I got.
Cool. Thanks, sir.
All right. Cheers.
See ya.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Practicing Accountant podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And we also hope that you've given some thought to the cross-selling opportunities you have for your clients. What are those things that you can be an expert at? What are those things that you can be really good at? And what are those things that you really don't need to spend any more time focusing on, just like everyone else tends to be these days? An expert in everything. We believe pricing power comes from your expertise in serving your clients, your niche clients, and that pricing power allows you to work less and earn more. We hope you share and like this episode and join us again for a future episode of the Practicing Accountant podcast. Thank you very much again for watching.